The courthouse was already buzzing long before sunrise, as though the marble walls themselves anticipated the coming collision of celebrity, power, and long-buried secrets. Reporters arrived in waves, jockeying for prime real estate on the steps, their breath fogging the cool morning air, while they tested hotspot connections and whispered, "He's giving it all today." DiCaprio's finally talking. Security officers, eyes narrowed beneath navy caps, kept the throng at bay, yet even they could feel the strange resonance drifting through the corridors. Something heavier than gossip was about to land. Inside, fluorescent lights blinked overhead, casting a pallid glow across the packed gallery. Legal aides rifled through binders, jurors exchanged uneasy glances, and every wooden bench creaked beneath the collective tension. When the double doors swung open at precisely 9 o'clock, Leonardo DiCaprio appeared, not the easy smiling star of red carpet photos, but a man who looked as if he'd spent the night negotiating with ghosts. His suit fit perfectly, yet his shoulders slouched beneath an invisible weight. One heartbeat passed, then another. The room inhaled as one. Papery whispers evaporated into silence. DiCaprio's shoes tapped a slow, metronomic cadence on the polished floor. He offered a respectful nod to the judge, then lowered himself into the witness seat, as though uncertain it would hold. Across the aisle, Diddy Combs sat rigid, jaw set, fingertips drumming so softly only the defense team could hear. The space between them, once filled with industry backslaps and polite applause, felt suddenly radioactive. Leonardo folded his hands, gaze steady. "I've attended more soirees than I can count," he began, voice almost fragile. Most were predictable, flashbulbs, flattery, fizz. But one night rewired every circuit of trust one had. Every pen in the gallery froze mid-stroke. He described an estate hidden beyond multiple security rings, a fortress masquerading as a playground for the elite. Guests arrived by chauffeured sedan or private jet, cell signals mysteriously muffled at the gate. "It glittered," Leo said, but the shine felt too precise, like a stage light masking a trapdoor. He painted the foyer, a string quartet filling vaulted ceilings, with lilting sonatas, waiters gliding like swans, trays of caviar and champagne balanced on fingertips, crystal chandeliers refracting colored light across polished marble. Yet beneath the music pulsed a frequency of disquiet, an intuition every hair on his arms detected. Security personnel smiled warmly while diverting wandering attendees. Corridors forked into velvet-draped wings, but only certain guests received nods to pass. "The mansion was a maze," he explained, designed to keep curiosity contained. The gallery leaned closer as DiCaprio reached the critical turn. Curiosity won. Behind an embroidered curtain lay a hallway he'd never noticed on his invitation tour. A solitary bulb flickered above, almost daring him to proceed. Halfway down, a door stood ajar, leaking crimson light and muffled laughter. He inched forward and peered inside. Cameras sat on tripods, lenses trained like predators, he recounted. A line of guests queued before a leather couch, awaiting instructions. Diddy occupied the center, arms folded, issuing orders with the calm of a director certain every scene would stay in the can. What froze Leo's blood, however, was the young woman perched on that couch, eyes round, breath shallow, barely older than 19. Their gazes locked. Terror flickered across her face before she dropped her chin. "In that instant," he murmured, "my definition of risk changed forever." Gasps ricocheted around the courtroom. Diddy remained statuesque, but the flicker behind his eyes betrayed recognition of the moment, now concussed into public record. The judge called a short recess, granting the gallery a chance to exhale, and the world outside a chance to inhale breaking news. 15 minutes later, Leonardo returned, steel replacing tremor in his voice. "What happened after midnight," he told the jury, "wasn't festivity, it was processing." He explained how guests disappeared for long stretches, then reemerged dazed, pupils dilated, murmuring scripted gratitude. Security men, faces blank as marble busts, shadowed anyone who lingered near forbidden hallways. At one point he attempted to leave early, only to be informed his driver had been unexpectedly delayed. Two escorts in tailored suits guided him to a glass-walled lounge, where lo-fi jazz oozed from hidden speakers. A bartender poured top-shelf whiskey without speaking a syllable. Inside that soundproof box, the illusion of luxury felt like a velvet-lined cage. When a car finally arrived near dawn, Leo sprinted past the gates with the adrenaline of a man who'd glimpsed a fault line under Hollywood's red carpet veneer. Back home, he tried to bury the memory under scripts and environmental campaigns. It clawed through his dreams anyway. Weeks later, an anonymous number flashed on his phone. A low voice rasped, "You saw too much. Let it die. Click. Sleep became a foreign country. On set, he fumbled lines. At award shows, he scanned rooms for familiar security faces. Projects stalled. Invitations vanished. It felt like an invisible hand moved me out of certain circles, he said, and I understood why only when an old colleague whispered about a list, an archive of compromising footage used to barter silence. That list, Leo explained, tied A-listers to financiers, senators to chart-topping producers, all indebted to Diddy's empire through the currency of secrets. Next came the blueprints. Through a private chat of worried insiders, DiCaprio received renovation diagrams of Diddy's mansion. The changes weren't expansions for guests. They were subdivisions, creating surveillance hubs, labyrinthine passages, and soundproof compartments. The architecture wasn't for comfort, he testified. It was for control. Every corridor a funnel, every camera an insurance policy. The prosecutor guided the narrative deeper. Had Leo witnessed anyone held against their will? A muscle twitched near his eye. He recounted searching for a restroom, descending a narrow staircase, faintly smelling of chlorine and damp linens. At the corridor's dead end, tinted glass concealed a small room. Inside sat a girl, knees hugged tight, tears glazing her cheeks. He cracked the door. She looked up, shook her head violently. Before he could speak, a security guard clamped a hand on the door and growled, "Wrong floor, Mr. DiCaprio. You saw nothing." Leo's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he retreated upstairs, yet the image of that girl adhered to his conscience like tar. Studios dismissed his concerns. One executive offered him a lucrative role and final cut privilege if he kept his unsubstantiated fears off record. Another warned, "You go after Diddy, you'll be uninsurable by morning." Careers vanish faster than tweets. Each attempted whistleblow met a locked door. "I realized," Leo said, "that the beast wasn't Diddy alone. It was an ecosystem fattened on fear." The courtroom stiffened when the prosecutor uttered a single word: "Lighthouse." Leo lowered his gaze, exhaled slowly. In industry hush-hush, the lighthouse described the mansion's inner sanctum, an observation tower where everything and everyone was illuminated for whoever controlled the switches. "Once you saw its light," he explained, "you couldn't pretend darkness again." He told of fundraisers where political operatives joked about importing lighthouse vibes to DC. At one, he saw Diddy pass a discreet envelope to someone within Barack Obama's circle. Leo clarified, "I don't claim the former president was complicit, but power hears whispers. Choosing not to act is a decision too." Years marched on. Nightmares followed. In 2021, anchored off Capri on a friend's yacht, companions mentioned the lighthouse was active. Leo drifted to the deck's edge, sea black beneath moonlight, and contemplated slipping under the waves. "Offing myself," he admitted, using the euphemism that skirted YouTube's forbidden lexicon. Instead, he vowed that if justice ever reached a courtroom, he'd testify no matter the fallout. Justice found him in 2019 when a jittery former assistant to a heavyweight record executive handed him a manila envelope. "If I disappear," she whispered, "give this to someone who still has a soul." Inside, text messages, security rosters, partial guest lists, names of underage individuals ushered through side gates and never photographed again. One survivor, Leo called her Hope, to protect her identity, sent a message that burned him awake at 3 a.m. "If the truth surfaces, they'll bury him, but they'll bury us too. I just need one person to say what happened." Leo kept her words as compass and shield. Back in court, that same envelope lay on counsel's table, edges frayed. Diddy's lawyers whispered frantic strategies before requesting a sidebar. Returning with pallid faces, they could only watch as the prosecutor asked DiCaprio to deliver a final statement. He stood, every eye magnetized to his steady figure. "I'm not here because I despise Sean Combs," he said, voice clear. "I'm here because silence is a debt I refuse to keep paying." He glanced at the jury. "This case isn't about glitz. It's about a system that let one man transform fear into currency, while the rest of us prioritized invitations and box office numbers over human life." Then Leo turned to Diddy. "You once told me people only care about the party. Well, the speakers blew, the lights popped, and what's left is the floor, sticky with secrets, begging to be cleaned." Diddy muttered, "All drama. Actors playing roles." Leo's reply floated softly. "The difference is, in my films, everyone knows it's make-believe. In yours, the victims never got a script." The judge adjourned for the day. Reporters burst from the courtroom like startled birds, phones aloft, broadcasting the seismic testimony. Some spectators clapped. Others silently processed the shattering of an icon's veneer. Yet everyone, believers and skeptics alike, understood that a tectonic shift had occurred. Hollywood's veneer had cracked, and through the fissure poured truths once deemed too explosive to speak. Outside, under a pale winter sun, DiCaprio walked flanked by officers. Flashes from distant cameras strobed across the courthouse steps. Applause mingled with murmurs of disbelief. Whether the jury would convict Diddy remained uncertain, but one certainty rang clear. The story's final act had begun, and no amount of fame could mute the echo of Leonardo's testimony.